So my name is Lindsay Davies, and I work with New Entry Sustainable Farming Project. And this webinar is about BFRDP for ranchers and grazers. And this is the second part of this webinar series. I'll start off with a few housekeeping things just about the WebEx system, and then we'll go over the agenda from there. So first of all, please set up your audio. You can call in using computer, or if you're having issues with that, you can also call in at this number below with the access code, and that will get you audio as well. We do have a chat option, and so that'll be over on your right-hand side. You can send a chat to everyone in the group, or you can just send it to me directly, or one of our other speakers, Allison or Laura. It's a great way to get our attention during the talk. So all the attendees, you are muted right now just because otherwise we get a lot of feedback on our end from everyone. So that's the best way to do it. This is a little intimate group. We have 9 folks logged in, so we will have question and answer time at the end. And so we can try to let everyone unmute them. I'll unmute you for that portion, but if we get a lot of feedback, we might just have to go to the chat for question and answer time. And if you're having any issues with audio, you can send a chat to me and I can definitely help you out as well. So again, this webinar is for Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program, Intro for Ranchers and Grazers, Part 2. And so Lindsay Davies, that's me with New Entry Sustainable Farming Project. Also joined with Allison Goin, who's Strategic Development and Program Design Consultant, and Laura Paine, Program Director of Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship. And I'll let those two introduce themselves in a minute. But these ladies have a wealth of experience with BFRDP and Beginning Farmer Training Programs. So very honored and excited to have them here. So thank you both. Here's the general agenda for the webinar today. We'll give a little brief overview of where we're at with BFRDP funding. And then Laura and Allison will introduce themselves, give their background. I'll introduce New Entry as well and the grant program helping to fund this project. And then Allison will jump in, start talking about the BFRDP program, and Laura will talk about the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship program that she works with as well. All right, so as we all know, the Farm Bill right now is expired. So the House and the Senate had their own separate farm bills, and Congress was not able to reconcile them together, and now we have an expired Farm Bill. So majority of the programs will continue to have funding through the end of the year. So the next big deadline is December. So the Farm Bill does include a wide variety of programs, with BFRDP being one of those programs. And both of the House and Senate versions did have funding in them for BFRDP, just slightly different amounts being allocated to both. And so we are optimistic that the new Farm Bill will have BFRDP funding. But right now, what this means is that a new request for proposals won't be given out until we have a new Farm Bill in place. I do want to mention that it is possible that the BFRDP program might be combined with another program, the 2501 program, which is for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers and veteran farmers and rancher program. But this is seen as a positive aspect because then there would be more money allocated and also would give permanent baseline funding to these programs as well. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds here about Farm Bill updates, but just want to close on this note and say that the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition has a great blog and lots of resources to help us all stay up to date on this as we are all watching this move forward. But the big takeaway also is that you should be working and preparing for your BFRDP because once that request for proposals does hopefully come out next year. We want you all to be ready to go. If you wait until the request for proposals comes out, it's probably too late to get everything in place to write a good grant. And one great step is being on this webinar today to learn more about the process. So I do want to give a little overview of new entry. So we are based in Lowell, Massachusetts, and we do work on the ground here with beginning farmers. We have an incubator farm, we have a food hub, and I work in the national team, which helps to strengthen networks across the country and helps to support farmer mentors across the country as well. And so we have an education enhancement team grant as a BFRDP, and this is to help support new applicants to the BFRDP program. And so the goal of this EET grant is to provide information that new applicants couldn't already find online. So we worked to understand the challenges that these new applicants have and getting them help to write successful proposals. So we worked to provide training materials such as recorded webinars that we have on our website. We also have an online portal for frequently asked questions related to BFRDP and an online self-assessment tool to see if you and your organization are ready to apply for a BFRDP or if this is a good fit for you right now. And so I'll send out links to our website where all these resources are housed, and it's a great way to get you all going with writing your BFRDP proposals. So now I'll have Laura introduce herself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Oh, I hear there's kind of an echo.
Oh.
But I'll go ahead. Yes, my name is Laura Paine. I am with Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship. I've been the program director for 2015, but I have a pretty working in sustainable agriculture education and managed grazing, mainly here in Wisconsin. So I've done some, I was with the university for a number of years doing research, and then as an extension educator, and I've spent some time as well doing market development work for grass-fed and organic production systems. And my husband and I are beef producers ourselves, so I've been immersed with grazing and livestock and education for many years. And I'll leave it at that.
Great. I love that photo of you.
It's coming. Winter is coming.
Oh, I know. All right. Allison, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I'm Allison Goin. I'm an independent consultant, and I am contracting with New Entry on this educational enhancement team because of my experience preparing USDA grant applications and working particularly with this program, the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program. I've been doing USDA grants for a number of years. You can see all of my lovely stats here, but basically I've had a lot of experience dealing with these grants from every angle, preparing them, and then actually managing projects that are funded and doing evaluation and reporting. So have seen them through every phase that they go through, and been in a lot of communication with NIFA, the program that operates this particular grant, and other USDA programs, and so hopefully have an understanding of how to help applicants, and that's been my role in this project. Let's see here. Yeah, I think this is leading into my part, Lindsay, so I can just keep going.
Cool.
So just a refresher for people who've been on past webinars, sorry for the repetition, but it will help you get this into your head, and then if you go work on your application, you'll know it by heart. So the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, BFRDP, is funded by the Farm Bill, like Lindsay mentioned, and it's operated through the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, which we refer to as NIFA. Is a department that really handles a lot of research-based activities for the USDA, and they run a number of major grant programs as well. This program's overall goal is to support beginning farmers and assist them with establishing a successful farm business. So they have a particular list of activities that they fund. We'll go into that in more detail. And I would just add to what Lindsay said about the farm bill situation. You know, there really has not, to my knowledge, been a lot of conflict over this program. It has pretty established results. Everybody really kind of wants to see it continue. So, you know, it's pretty likely, there doesn't seem to be any risk that this program won't start up again. It's just a matter of when, and also if it's combined with this other program that focuses on socially disadvantaged farmers. But regardless, there's lots of good data supporting the need, both the need for this program and the results that it's achieved. So I think we can be fairly confident that it will continue. So the point of these couple webinars was just that, you know, while BFRDP includes ranchers in the title, it hasn't been the focus of a lot of applicants to date. And we really wanted to try to reach an audience here of the growing number of people that are interested in livestock farming and assisting beginning farmers with getting into this way of farming, particularly with grazing and you know, ranching programs that work with regenerative grazing and other practices. Not by no means limited to those, but that was our thinking. And so what we've done is just pull together a couple experts. On our last webinar, we had Monica Plus from Kivera Coalition, and if you missed that one, I'd really recommend going to the recording because she had a lot of great things to say about their apprenticeship program. And then on this one, we have Laura Paine from the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship Program. So thinking that these individuals can give you more in-depth on their programs. We'll go back to that. So again, purpose of Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, supporting beginning farmers and ranchers with less than 10 years of experience. That's the definition of beginning from the USDA, so up to 10 years of experience. They're really focused on successful and sustainable farm businesses. Again, they're not looking for gardening programs or all of the other kind of really interesting work that we're seeing in food and agriculture. They're really focused on farm businesses. They have quite an extensive list of topics that are covered in the curricula. Basically anything you can think of that's really relevant for beginning farmers would be included. This program is intended for nonprofits, for colleges and universities, extensions, and government agencies. So private or individual farms themselves cannot apply directly. The programs that apply also have to have a training program for beginning farmers or ranchers, or some kind of technical assistance program where you're providing support. So again, profiling these apprenticeship programs is just to give you a sense of some of the diverse types of programs that can be funded by this program. A couple other important pieces just to remember: that any applicant to this program has to work in collaboration with other partners. Your partners do not have to meet these same eligibility requirements, but as long as the lead applicant does. So you can partner with individual farms, you can partner with private or profit businesses, but they want to see collaborative projects. And then the other piece is that there's a 25% cost sharing requirement. This means that your total budget, the grant, cannot fund more than 75% of that, and you have to contribute funds from other sources. The good news about that, what we call a matching requirement, cost sharing, is that you can provide in-kind contributions to meet that, such as staff time or facilities, things like that. The program benefits, you can look a lot of this up, but obviously the money is the first thing that usually attracts people. These can be up to 3-year grants, so there is some continuity, which is helpful. They do an annual project directors conference where everybody meets from across the country. You share your results. I think Lindsay was just at the one that they had about a week or 2 ago. And there's a standardized reporting system that they use, which, you know, people have pros and cons about it, but it does help you set up your goals and help you report on them. And because they're collaborative projects and there is this kind of national sharing practice, it's an opportunity to really build, you know, collaborative relationships across the country. And particularly, we're thinking now about how this can help this emerging area of training for ranchers and grazers. So some examples of the types of programs that are funded, a lot of the incubator farms, but you know what we're seeing is that model is actually a lot easier for vegetable programs to set up because of the infrastructure requirements being much less and the initial investment being much less. They also fund classroom training, mentorship and apprenticeship, which we're going to hear about from Laura, extension, and they do also run a website called farmanswers.org, which is a great resource and one that you do need to look into if you're going to apply. They list all the previously funded projects and their reports. It's really an interesting source of information. And then they also put on that website all the different pieces of curricula that have been developed by other projects, toolkits, you know, farmer questionnaires, whatever programs have created with their funding. So it's a great resource. And just a reminder about the collaborations piece. Another thing we were kind of hoping to foster with these webinars on ranchers and grazers is just to look for partnership opportunities. It's a little hard to facilitate good group discussion on a webinar, but at least to raise your awareness about some of the things that are out there and maybe give some ideas about that. And Laura will talk about how they have partnered with other groups as well. So some of the questions we were using to frame this discussion were, you know, how to best support people that are beginning ranchers and grazers, how to give them the training and technical assistance and support that they need to get going. You know, what models are out there? How are they working? What are some of the new ideas out there? Again, how to build collaboration and common challenges. So we felt the best way to get at the answers to these questions, again, was to go to the experts, the people that are already doing this work and have been successful with this work. And so we're highlighting 2 different programs. Today, the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship Program, and so I'm going to pass this off to Laura Paine, who's the Program Director for DGA, and they have had a number of successful BFRDP grants as well as being one of the leaders in the country for this kind of program. So we're very, very happy to have Laura here, and I'm going to pass it over to her. So let's see if this works. Do I want to?
Thank you, Allison and Lindsay. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today, and I hope we'll have some time to have some discussion at the end. I know it's kind of awkward to discuss over a webinar, but I feel like we're still learning a lot in the development of our program, and I appreciate what everyone else is doing out there, and I think we can all learn from each other. So Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship is a little bit unique because we're actually a formal registered apprenticeship, like a plumbing or carpentry apprenticeship. So we're registered at the Federal Department of Labor, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means as we go forward in the presentation. But based on my experience, oops, I went the wrong way. Let's try this. In preparation for this presentation, I kind of thought back across my quarter century of experience working with beginning experiencers, and also doing a lot of project management in a variety of roles. And I put together a few key elements that I think are really important for a beginning livestock and livestock farmer program. And those include, first, in terms of the program, having some work-based or hands-on training that includes mentoring by an experienced farmer. I think that peer-to-peer learning is really important. I also think having managed grazing or pasture management as part of the training is important. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. There's the important need for having this learning includes some science-based training on animal nutrition and health, because the foremost thing to being a successful livestock producer is keeping your animals healthy, of course. Business planning and marketing is another key piece. And then the notion of peer networking and having your student come out of the program with kind of a peer support group that they can work with going forward. And then in terms of management, having a robust evaluation process in place so that you can do your reporting that Allison mentioned, and also so that you can have this feedback loop and always be improving. And then I guess the other key thing I think is actually bringing a group of farmers, ranchers into your planning process and having them be, in the form of an advisory group or a board or something to help guide the program as it develops. Okay, so every presentation I do, I get on my little soapbox for a few minutes and talk about kind of the broader implications of apprenticeship in agriculture. And I just wanted to put in a plug for thinking about farming and the fact that we have a large baby boomer generation who is nearing retirement. We have a much smaller generation of people coming up to replace these farmers. And I think we're in a place where agriculture in general needs to think about establishing a formal process for training beginning farmers. And across the skilled trades, apprenticeship is a well-accepted and well-established tradition for training our next generation. And I think part of the reason why we went in the direction of formal apprenticeship is that, as you'll see, it's a very strong, very effective way of passing along these skills to the next generation. And then I'd also like to argue that any livestock training program should involve managed grazing. Managed grazing is the single most effective and cost-efficient way of feeding livestock. And it also has multiple other benefits, including environmental protections, wildlife habitat, and quality of life. So including grazing management in your program can help your beginning farmers get off to the best start possible. So now I'll get down off my soapbox and see if I can get this to move forward. Here we go. So dairy grazing apprenticeship, as I said, is a formal registered apprenticeship. And here's kind of the framework of the program. It's a 2-year program. It works by, we approve private dairy farmers to do the training, and then those farmers hire the apprentices, and we guide and facilitate the training program over the 2 years. So it includes 3,718 hours of paid on-the-job employment, and about 10% of it is what we call related instruction. So there are 6 classes that the beginning farmers have to take. Their online classes. And then we also require a certain number of hours of informal education, going out and taking part in conferences and other workshops. We also provide financial planning services as part of the individualized planning services as part of the program. So that's kind of an overview of our program. So here's what we've done. Because we're a national organization, we have invested in a web-based or cloud-based record-keeping system. And this is kind of a screenshot of the where our masters enter the hours. So every month, each of our masters enters their apprentices' hours so that we have a record of how far along they are and when they've reached the 3,712 hours that are required. Then we also have a page where each apprentice has a record of their classes that they've taken and what their grades have been and the hours that they've taken. It also includes the discussion groups and other informal education that they participate in. Right now we have about 40 apprentices. Oops, sorry about that. So we have about 40 apprentices and a total of about 160 approved master farms. So this website allows us to keep track of each of those apprentices and where they are in their training. So I think one of the keys to our the way our program is set up, and I think one of the keys to our success with obtaining grant funding and also building a partner base, is that we started with a very robust set of training guidelines. So most apprenticeships in the formal sense of the word are begin with the practitioners of that trade sitting down together and creating this shared understanding of the skills that are needed to be a successful practitioner of the trade. So what we did is we brought together a group of dairy farmers and other grazing and dairy experts at the very beginning when we started in 2010. And this set of training guidelines is what they came up with. It details all of the different categories of work needed to gain the skills you need in a comprehensive way to become a dairy farmer. So it not only includes kind of the physical labor aspect of, how to milk, how to manage pastures, how to build a fence. It also includes kind of management level skills like, how do you manage a group of calves and raise them until they're ready to join the milking herd. So there's the formal name for a formal process for doing this. It's called DACUM, or developing a curriculum. And I think probably in every state in maybe your university education department or someplace like that, you would have people who are experienced in facilitating this process. And this might be a good way to start out any livestock training program that you might want to start, is bringing together that group of experts and practitioners. And what that does is it creates this base of support for your program. And it also creates a kind of a standardized program or curriculum that you can have all of your farmers utilize. So this book is given to each of our apprentices, and they actually go through it and check off things as they learn the skills. So that's kind of the foundation of our program, and we spent a lot of time building that very kind of structured educational content. And because we have that very strong educational structure, we've attracted a lot of interest. And this map is populated by participants in our programs. So as you can see, we've focused mainly on what they call the dairy belt in the Great Lakes region. The blue icons are where our master dairy farmers are located. So these are experienced farmers who have gone through our approval process and are eligible to take on apprentices. And then the most numerous, the dark red icons, are apprentice candidates. So they apply right on our website. And then the masters can select from those candidates and choose the apprentice that they want to train. So one of the things that Allison asked me to talk about a little bit was our partnering, and this has been a huge benefit to us as we've spread out very rapidly across a number of states. We've actually had other organizations come to us and ask to be a part of the program, and some of the organizations we have reached out to as well. If we've got farmers in their areas that are interested in being part of the program. So having this very robust and structured educational program, other organizations have been interested in adopting that, and we've made it flexible so that anything from a university to another nonprofit like us can utilize it. So, for example, PASA, the Pennsylvania Association for Sustainable Agriculture, has a broad educational, farmer education mission. So they're using DGA as one piece of that broader mission to train beginning dairy farmers. Other like universities have see this as a good fit with their extension education programs as well. So we've got several universities we're working with. One of the main benefits to DGA of having these partnerships is that we're working with organizations that are embedded in their local communities, and they have they know the farmers, and they know who would be a good mentor, and they know how to work with other organizations in their communities. And in many times, they have an existing cohort of farms that they're working with. So it's been very effective for our growth to have these partners in other states who know their communities much more intimately than we would. Okay, and then the other key piece of our program that is made possible by these partners is that each one of those organizations has identified a person on their staff or been able to solicit grant funding to bring on someone who can be our education coordinator in that state. So we're a very small nonprofit with 3 full-time staff, but our reach is dramatically expanded by working through these other organizations and having those folks on the ground in those other states. So through the process of this growth, we've been very grateful to have funding from BFRDP as kind of a foundation of our funding support. Certainly not the only funding we've used, but we have had, we're on our 4th BFRDP grant, and we'll talk through the different grants we've had and how we've structured them. But we've also looked to other sources for funding and have been very fortunate in working with the USDA SARE program, the NRCS Conservation Innovation Grant Program, and several other programs. And part of the reason why this has been successful is that we've going back to what I was saying at the beginning, the structure of the program with the an emphasis on business planning and financial management, as well as on the environmental benefits of managed grazing. We've been able to seek out funding from foundations and organizations that may have an environmental focus, or they may, we've got some funding from a couple of bank foundations. They like the strength of the business planning and financial management part of the program. And then working with all of these partners, they may have local funding sources that are available to them in their states that can support the program for them. So by creating this network, we've been able to develop a diverse and fairly stable collection of funding sources. Okay, so for our BFRD grant support, the program started out with a one-year, what they were calling a development grant. At the time, we pitched the idea, and it wasn't eligible for a full 3-year grant. But this development grant allowed us to do that day to get the curriculum created and go through the registration process for our apprenticeship with our State Department of Workforce Development. And then we were able to get 4 apprentices off the ground in that first year. And the first full standard grant we received, that was used to kind of build out the program here in our state. So we approved a number of training farms in the state. We established that individualized financial advising program, and that remains a key piece of the program. We became an approved Farm Service Agency financial management training program, which means that a beginning farmer who's gone through our program gets a few extra points and is more likely to be able to get a loan when they get done with the program. And then the second general or standard grant we received was at the point where we started receiving information from other states. So we built that proposal around our expansion into other states, including going to the federal level and getting our apprenticeship registered with the Federal Department of Labor. And then we built those first few relationships with other organizations in New York, Pennsylvania, Missouri, and Maine. And then, as you always need to do, we continued building some outcomes with 92 master farms in 9 states, and then enrolled 33 new master apprentice pairs and graduated 20 apprentices to journey worker status. Okay, and then our current BFRDP grant, which we received last year, is about 15 grants. And this program is run separately, and I think it's assessed with somewhat different criteria. But we felt that it was a good fit for our program at the stage of development where we are. So we're currently working with 8 partners in 12 states. And we focused this proposal on really creating the resources and processes for training not only our partners in the program, but also the master farmers, and developing some professional development materials for their to build their mentoring skills. We also, in this one, are looking at building the program not only geographically, but also in depth, and helping our aspiring farmers, when they finish the training program, what are their next steps, and how can we help them, support them actually getting started farming. So that's another piece of our project that we're working on now. And then the final piece goes back to if you remember, the program is primarily work-based training, but we also have these 6 classes that are required. Historically, we've worked with technical colleges here in Wisconsin to provide those classes. They've been able to bring them online so that all of our apprentices, wherever they are working, have access to them, but they've always been slightly less than we'd like them to be. So what we're doing in these next couple of years is actually bringing those classes in-house and hiring a staff person to oversee the program using an online learning management system. And that'll help us or allow us to more closely integrate the classroom training with what they're experiencing on the farm. So those are the 3 projects we're currently working on, the current BFRDP program. And I think the part of the way we look at this whole progression is many of you probably are working for an organization for whom beginning farmer training is a piece of your mission. BGA is a little different in that we exist solely to provide this training program. So our mission is very focused, and that's both a strength and a limitation. We have, because we are doing this within this very limited mission, it also kind of helps us look forward and have a very clear direction to go in and to plan for. And it also, what we do is we involve our board of directors and a number of the allied groups that we work with in helping us envision what our future needs to be. And I think that helps us kind of be strategic about where we look for funding and how we shape even repeat proposals to the same entity like the BFRDP or some of our foundations, because we have this very clear mission and we've taken the time to kind of think through what our long-term goals are. And I think I'll just end by kind of reinforcing these characteristics. So whether or not you're interested in going the formal apprenticeship route, I think the goals of any effective beginning farmer program, especially when you're working with livestock, is having that blend of hands-on and classroom training, and having a strong business planning and marketing guidance approach. I also like to plug source of information and peer-to-peer sharing. This is another one of the new entry projects that we're involved in, the Ag Apprenticeship Learning Network. So you can see the core members on the screen there, but anyone can join. And this has been a very valuable project just to bring apprenticeship programs together across the country and share ideas and share information. We do have this toolkit that we collaborated on that has kind of describes a range of different work-based training situations and may help you decide how you'd like to proceed or what level of formality or structure you want to use for your program. It also goes into a lot of the process or the structure you would need to go through to identify how you're going to set up your program, and also how to identify a good match between a mentor and apprentice, who you want to suggest or select for mentors, and all kinds of things, budgeting and running the program. So I'd encourage people, like I said, regardless of whether you want to go the formal apprenticeship route or do something more informal, to check that out and use that to help guide your planning. With that, I think that was my last slide. So I will turn it over to Allison.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. And then I just have a few final thoughts here. Allison, I can go over these, or did you want to?
I can, if you want.
Sure.
Yeah, just to sum up, and thank you so much, Laura, for that presentation. I think there were a lot of resources that you covered too, and so we'll connect as a team afterwards and make sure the ones that are available to everyone, we'll send out links in the follow-up email, because I think some of those booklets and toolkits, guidelines for curriculum, those would be extremely helpful for other people working on similar programming. And, you know, again, I mean, all of you who attended the webinar obviously are thinking ahead, so good job. And, you know, to just keep working on how you would be putting together your application and start talking to potential partners and do your research, use the time that we have while we're waiting for the new announcement to get ready, because it really will make a very big difference in your success. Another thing you can do now is, if your organization has not applied for a federal grant before, you have to register for the grants.gov program where you submit grants, and also for the System of Award Management, SAM. And we have guidelines online. There's a lot of places to go to get that information, but you can get that done because it takes a few weeks, and then it's good for a year once you're set up. So it's worth doing that now too, and then you don't have to worry about it. We have a bunch of resources we'll share. Again, some of the things we've talked about. We created a self-assessment tool where you can go through and answer questions. It's like a quiz, basically, and it helps you assess what you need to do to get ready, and it links you to a lot of different resources. All of our prior webinars are available, and New Entry has a great site with just a bunch of collections of resources. And I also am available for private consultation to organizations that want more in-depth help with putting together a proposal. So we'll send the follow-up email. Please do complete the survey. It helps us with our funding for this project. And then I think we'll take the last few minutes for question and answer. So we would love to you know, hear from you. I don't know, Lindsay, if you are getting any questions coming through, questions for Laura about what DGA has done, or for me about the Beginning Farmer and Rancher grant. We're happy to answer those now.
Yeah, I haven't gotten any in the chat, but I just unmuted all the participants. We'll see how that works. If we get a lot of feedback, we'll have to mute everyone again, but there's not a ton of folks. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to speak, or you can send it to the chat. I can start with a question for Laura. Oh, here's a question coming in. What was your experience with working with the workforce?
Not sure I know what that means exactly, but let me.
Sure.
Hey, this is Aisha. I just asked that question.
Hey, Aisha. Great.
Hey, if I read it right, if I remember right, Laura, you dealt with the state, I guess it's the state, in trying to get an apprenticeship program through local work. Here we call it workforce. Is
Yeah,
that right? Or
so yeah, we started out with our state Department of Workforce Development, so the same as in your state. And I believe there are like 26 states that have state-level apprenticeship programs that you can work with. So depending on where you're located, that would be the best first step. And Wisconsin is very hands-on, and they're very supportive of new apprenticeships. So they've been very helpful in getting ours started. And we just had a vegetable farm manager apprenticeship get approved through our state. I know other states are much more hands-off, and our partner in Pennsylvania, they just also had a vegetable apprenticeship approved by their state, and it was really, they just wanted the paperwork, and they were good to go pretty much. So they had to go through the DACM and get the curriculum developed. But they weren't.
In the last couple of days, a farmer friend of mine tried to do the same thing, but I think she went to a local, a regional office, and they told her no, they didn't go for it. And after listening to your presentation, I think what maybe the approach she went was, she was looking for somebody to work on her farm, and maybe she approached it from the labor point of view instead of from an ownership point of view. Do you know what I mean?
I think so, yeah. And I think it would probably be much more of a hurdle for a single farm to go through that process. I know that Villicus Farm out in Montana has been successful getting one through their state workforce development, but they had a pretty structured curriculum.
Okay.
But it really depends on in some ways it comes down to what your state is looking for.
Okay.
I'd be happy to follow up with you if you had more questions.
Okay. Sorry, I'll take my notes to her, and then maybe she and I will contact you.
Sure. That sounds great.
Cool. We had another question come in from Gabby. Does DGA do any work with raw dairy or any farmers providing value-added products?
Not directly, but we do have a number of farmers who are approved to train apprentices that have farmstead creameries, including some in states where raw milk is legal. It's not in Wisconsin. But the way we handle that is we have within the 3,700 hours of work-based training, there are a couple of optional modules that can be swapped in and out, and one of them is on organic farming specifically, and one of them is on value-added, so they can do some of their, I think it's like 300 hours of the total focused on those value-added products or cheese making or whatever it is.
Awesome. Any other questions from folks? All right. I had a question for you, Laura. I was wondering how you got to the 4,000 hours for the apprenticeship, and do you think 4,000 hours is a good number for these apprenticeships? Like, why is it not 3,000 or 5,000?
Good question. So the minimum for a registered apprenticeship is 2,000 hours or 1 year. So it's kind of based on a year of full-time labor, at, which is like 22,080 hours, I think. And we thought having a 2-year program would give the apprentice all of this, experience with all of the seasons, and 2 years might give the diversity of seasonal experience that you could get probably not, but
yeah,
give it a little bit more.
it's a good start.
And the other, yes, and the other piece is that we really wanted it to give the apprentice to get past just learning the physical skills and maybe get into more developing management type skills. So maybe in the second year they could actually be given responsibility for pasture rotation or for raising calves or something like that. So it's kind of go into more depth in terms of gaining some skills on managing all of the working parts.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here today. I don't have any other questions coming in, but just want to remind everyone I'll send out a follow-up email with this webinar recording and the resources that we talked about, and also a survey. Please fill that out. Gives us feedback about what we're doing, and you can also give us feedback about future webinars or resources you might want to see us focus on. So with that, thank you so much, Laura and Allison, for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.